The process to put a replica Cigar pen together takes various steps. The first step is to take some buckeye burl, cut that down to about 1.25 inches, and then using medium CA glue, glue it to a piece of mesquite burl or other type of wood that looks sort of like a cigar. Clamp it and let it sit at least 20 minutes. I prefer letting it sit overnight so it cures perfectly. Once it's cured, then I take the piece of buckeye burl and mesquite, mark the tops using a small little thumb marker, punch the holes in the center of the blanks, just to give me a reference, and then using a drill with a 1/8 inch bit, drill 1/8 inch down into each end of the blank. Once the blank is cured, holes are drilled, I put it on the lathe using a live center and a dead center, and then I'll take my R2 cutter, a carbide cutter, turn the blank round. Once I've turned it round, I will then mark 3¼ inches from the end, and I will then take this to the bandsaw and cut it in half, or cut it along that line, so that I can then insert the pieces of the pen kit into the respective ends of the blank. So once we're finished with the drill press and we've cut the blanks in half, I'll use my Nova chuck with my pen jaws on it for drilling pen blanks on the headstock. In the tailstock, I will use a keyless chuck, and for the mouthpiece, I will use a 25/64 drill bit to drill into the blank up to the tape mark, which is roughly 2 7/8 inches. I'll then check that using a depth gauge to make sure that I'm in the right place. Once this is drilled, I will then leave this in the chuck, and then use a parting tool to cut a relief inside the edge of the opening to allow for the pen pieces to be able to fit tightly into the bottom part of the pen, or the mouth part of the pen. I'll then go to the drill press to drill out the ash end. I'll put that in the jig that I have, drill that using a 15/32 drill, again to the point of the tape. So the next step is to then take your pen kit and separate the parts you're going to use from the parts you are not going to use. So I'm using a Junior Gent pen kit in this case, so I will not be using the clip, the end pieces, or any of the little fancy rings that go with it. What I will be using are the nib, the end of the pen, the spring, the connector, and the brass tubes, as well as the refill. So using thick CA glue, first of all I'll put all the pieces together, then I'll take the CA glue and glue into the tubes, and then let that sit again for at least 20 minutes to overnight, to make sure that everything there is properly cured and nothing is going to come apart. The next step is to take the pen once you've got the pieces together, and put it back together and stick it back on the lathe using the dead center and the live center. You're then using the carbide bit. I will go down and smooth this out to make sure all the pieces fit as they're supposed to fit, and the thing is perfectly smooth again. I will then use 320 grit sandpaper to smooth out the entire pen, and at that point I'll take it off the lathe, separate the two pieces, put each piece back on the lathe, and then using CA glue I will then put 2 coats of CA glue on the wood piece, on the burl only, not on the ash piece, just on the burl. And then I will, after the 2 coats, I'll sand with 1800 grit micro mesh, and just smooth that out. Then do the same thing with the other end, obviously taking off the nib and taking out the refill. Put it back, put this on the lathe, do the same thing with the super glue and the micro mesh, and then we're done with that part of the pen. At that point, we'll put the pen back together, take it back to the bandsaw, and cut off this large tip of the ash. The next step is to take the Dremel, using a variety of tips, including this pointed serrated tip and this sanding disc actually, and we're going to then use the Dremel to cut ridges and holes all throughout the tip of the cigar, so to give it an ash type of look. Once we've finished that and you're satisfied with the look, we'll then take a burner and burn what appears to be burnt ash marks into the pen all the way around. Once we've done all that, the very last thing we do is we put a cigar label on the pen so that it looks like a cigar. And that's the process. So now we're going to drill the holes into the center of the I'm going to drill just an 1/8 inch hole, about an 1/8 inch deep, on either end. So now we mount the blank in the nice and snugged up. Make sure it's turning true. Make sure we have the right speed. Set up the rest. We want to be about halfway up the side of the blank, halfway up to the blank. About there. And then we're just going to turn. I'm just going to try to turn this down a little bit so it looks more like ash is supposed to look, which is smaller than the cigar itself. So we get this down so where it's looking pretty good right now, and what we're going to now do is measure this out and then cut it up and put it or mark it up, put it on the bandsaw, and then we're going to drill out the two halves. So over at the bandsaw, using this little V-groove jig, I'm going to line this up with the blade and then cut the cigar in half. We'll now take the halves and drill them out for the pen parts. So to prevent the jaws on the chuck from marring the barrel, what I'll do is I'll just take this little painter's tape and wrap it around the barrel, and then I'll sit it into the jaws. So with the blank centered in the chuck, the 25/64 drill bit in the Jacob's chuck, we're going to turn the lathe, slow speed, and drill our first hole. We go in a little ways until we'll start getting a little binding, and then we'll back out. Clean off the bit, back in, and continue drilling. Now, if we've done everything right, we've got ourselves a 2 7/8 inch hole drilled to 25/64. Just a shade over 3, which is fine. Take the drill bit out, take the chuck out, and the next process is going to be cutting a relief into the end of the tube to be able to receive the coupler from the upper part of the tube, or the ash end. So now we need to cut a relief in the end of the mouthpiece to fit this little chrome piece on the coupler that goes into the ash end. And what we want to do is we want to have it seated so that none of the chrome piece shows. So to do that, and then we'll test it. It's a little tight, so we'll get a little wider. And that fits in just nicely. Okay, so here at the drill press, we're going to drill the ash end using the 15/32 drill bit. And we've got a hole drilled in this piece now. It's off center. So now we're going to assemble the pen pieces. So I'll take the coupler, put it into the large barrel, adjust the pen press, and then put that together. I'll then take the smaller barrel for the lower end, put the spring in the bottom, put this into the tube, again adjust, there we go, it always happens. That. Take the nib end, put that piece in, put the refill in, and assemble that, make sure they fit together correctly, and we're done with that piece. Okay. So the next step is to take thick CA glue, put it inside the barrels, swish it around a little bit, as much as thick CA swishes, and then put the pieces into the pen, or into the blanks, so that they can be set up to go back to the lathe and turn. Now this process takes at least 20 minutes, more likely an hour and a half to overnight for the glue to cure and be absolutely certain that it's cured. If not, it could pull apart, and we don't want that. So what I've done is I've prepared another set that we will take to the lathe and finish the pen with. So rather than watching the glue dry, what we're going to do is take a piece that I've already prepared and take it to the lathe to finish it up. So now what we're going to do is smooth out the two joined pieces and cut a little bit more away of the ash to make it look a little bit more ash-like, as it were. So now what we're going to do is sand this down one final time with 320, and then we're going to put some CA glue on it. We're not going to be sanding the ash because that's going to be cut up with the Dremel shortly, and then there's no reason to sand that. Now to do the CA, just take a piece of paper towel, some medium CA, put a few drops on the cloth, and then just run it on the blank. Hit it with a couple of shots of accelerator, and it will dry. Again, a couple of drops of medium CA. Some accelerator, and that's done. Now we take 1800 and just knock back the shine. All we're looking to do is get rid of the shiny spots. And just check it out. Make sure all the shiny spots are gone. And that one's done. And we're going to do the same thing with the other end. But in this case we're going to take out the nib and the refill first, and then put this in. And we're going to sand. And a couple more pieces of a little more paper towel. And then again, knock it down with 1800. And just check to make sure all the high spots are out. And we have reached nirvana. Now we have to put the pen back together and go back to the bandsaw and cut off that clunky end of the ash, and so we can begin to turn the ash down. So now we're going to cut the large square piece off of the ash, and then we're going to turn the ash into, how shall I put this? Ash. So now what we're going to do is use the Dremel and this sanding disc to cut some grooves all around the edge of the ash. Then I'm going to change bits and try to refine those edges. So. Just in case you're wondering, I have no idea what a cigar ash looks like since I don't smoke cigars. I'm just going with what I've seen others do in various YouTube videos and some tutorials that I've seen on the web. Okay, now I have to change bits. So this bit is a needle bit with a roughed up edge along the one side. You can see the difference in the coloration there. So this is very rough, it's very sharp, so I can poke holes and rough over some edges. So here we go. So now what we're going to do is actually put some burn marks on the ash to give it that even more realistic look. And what I just have here is a small wood burner that has many tips. This is the only tip I've ever used. I'm sure the other tips may do better, but it's the only one I've used. Besides, I don't know how to get the tips out. So we just randomly burn some marks in here so it looks like the way a cigar burns. This is just random. You do it however you'd like to do it. Those who smoke probably know how this looks better than I do. So if you think it's right, just let me know when to stop. I think we'll stop there. Okay, so finally what we're going to do is we're going to take this cigar band, turn it over, put some glue on it. You can use either rubber cement or you can use this Elmer's. Use whatever glue will come off clean. And don't use too much. You don't want to get too sloppy with it. Then we're just going to take the band, center it on the pen, wrap one side of it around, wrap the other side, take off the excess glue, band up a little bit. Couple more of the excess glue. And we have our replica cigar pen.